Tonight, when you turn off the light and close your eyes, you'll do something almost no human in history has ever done. You'll sleep alone. Not just tonight, every night, in your own bed, in your own room, behind your own closed door. And it'll feel completely normal. It'll feel like the default. It'll feel like the way humans sleep. It isn't. For 300,000 years, your ancestors never once slept the way you sleep now. Not in caves, not in villages, not in farmhouses, not even in the bedrooms of medieval kings. The idea that a healthy adult should spend a third of their life unconscious, alone, in a sealed room with no other human within arm's reach, that idea is roughly 150 years old. It's younger than the light bulb. And the strangest part is what we lost when we made the switch. No anthropologist has ever found a society where adults slept alone by default. Not one. From the Hadza of Tanzania to medieval England to the Yanomami of the Amazon, every documented human group, in every climate, has slept the same way. Together, in groups, within arm's reach of other bodies. To understand why, we have to go back. Further than Rome. Further than agriculture. Further than language as we know it. And the evidence goes back further than you'd think. In 2011, an archaeologist named Lynn Wadley was digging through a rock shelter called Sibida Cave on the eastern coast of South Africa. Deep in the sediment, her team found something they weren't expecting. Layers of compressed sedge leaves, mixed with the crushed remains of an aromatic plant whose oils repel mosquitoes. It was a mattress, a deliberate, constructed, insect-proofed bed. It was 77,000 years old. And it was big enough, Wadley estimated, to hold an entire family. This is the oldest bed ever found. And it was built for a crowd. Sibida isn't unique. Everywhere anthropologists look in the deep human past, every hearth, every cave floor, every preserved sleeping site, the pattern is the same. People slept in piles. Children against mothers, mothers against grandmothers, men along the outer edge, closer to the fire. Bodies arranged around a low flame that someone, all night long, would wake to feed. There was a reason for this beyond comfort. The world your ancestors fell asleep in was dangerous. A sleeping human on the African savanna, alone, on the ground, was food. Leopards hunt at night. So do hyenas. So do lions. Sleep is the most defenseless thing a primate ever does. And our ancestors did it in the open, with no walls. The only thing standing between them and being eaten was the rest of the group. But being in a group only works if someone is awake. Somebody had to be. Always. And it's not who you'd guess. In 2017, an anthropologist named David Sampson wired up the adults of a Hadza camp in Tanzania and measured what happened across the night. The Hadza are one of the last hunter-gatherer societies on Earth. They still sleep the way humans slept before agriculture. What Sampson found became known as the sentinel hypothesis. Over more than 220 hours of observation, there was almost never a moment when every adult was asleep at the same time. Total simultaneous sleep, across an entire group of 33 people, added up to about 18 minutes per night. Not 18 minutes per person. 18 minutes total. Somebody was always awake. A younger adult stayed up late. An older adult woke before dawn. Grandparents, whose sleep naturally fragments with age, drifted in and out and kept a quiet watch over the fire and the children. Sampson called this the poorly sleeping grandparent hypothesis. Your grandmother waking at 4 a.m. isn't a malfunction. It's a feature. It's a 300,000-year-old security system, still running. This is the world your nervous system was tuned for. A world where you fell asleep listening to other people breathing. Where the warmth on either side of you was the warmth of someone you'd known your entire life. Where your brain, deep underneath conscious thought, was tracking the presence of other humans, and would only relax into the deepest stages of sleep when it confirmed that you weren't alone. And your brain still does this. Wendy Troxell, a sleep scientist at the Rand Corporation, has spent years measuring what happens when people sleep next to someone versus when they sleep alone. The results are not what modern sleep advice would predict. Sharing a bed measurably disrupts sleep. More movement, more wake-ups, more disturbance. And yet people who share a bed with a trusted partner fall asleep faster, report better sleep quality, and show better cardiovascular markers than people who sleep alone. The brain is willing to trade objectively worse sleep for the presence of another body. That trade is older than language. For most of recorded history, nobody questioned it. Skip from the savannah to medieval Europe, and the pattern is unbroken. In 1187, Richard the Lionheart sealed a peace treaty with King Philip of France by sharing his bed with him. A medieval chronicler recorded this as completely unremarkable. A sign of trust, a sign of brotherhood, a political alliance. Two grown kings, sleeping side by side, with no sexual connotation at all. It was just what powerful men did. Queen Elizabeth I, by some accounts, didn't sleep alone a single night during her 44-year reign. She slept with a trusted attendant beside her, every night, until she died. In a small English town called Ware, there sat a bed so famous that Shakespeare wrote it into a play. The Great Bed of Ware was 11 feet wide and 11 feet deep. According to one 17th century account, 26 butchers and their wives, 52 adults, once slept in it together for a bet. Travelers paid to share it with strangers. Sharing a bed with someone you'd never met was so ordinary that French phrasebooks for English travelers included translations for "you pull all the bedclothes" and "you are an ill bedfellow." The historian Roger Eckhart spent 2 decades reading early modern diaries. He found something striking. People didn't just tolerate sleeping with others. They preferred it. They wrote about favorite bedfellows. They composed poems mourning the death of someone they'd shared a bed with for years. A young Englishwoman named Sarah Hurst wrote elegies for her preferred sleeping companion the way modern people write about a spouse. So what changed? How did we go from this to sleeping behind a locked door in 150 years? The answer is one man. In 1861, an American physician named William Whitty Hall published a book called Sleep. His central argument was that sharing a bed wasn't just unhygienic. It was morally degenerative. He wrote that communal sleep was unnatural. He claimed it brought human beings closer to the vilest animals in the animal kingdom. He warned that the air in a room with 2 sleepers would become polluted. He insisted that a virtuous person slept alone. His book landed in the middle of an industrial society that was already pulling families apart. Chimneys made it possible to heat more rooms. Rising wealth made it possible to build more rooms. The Victorian middle class was inventing the modern bedroom, a private space, sealed off from other family members, where the individual could be properly alone. Hall's argument gave that architecture a moral justification. By the late 1800s, separate beds for married couples were a status symbol. By the early 1900s, hotels were advertising single occupancy rooms as a luxury. By the 1950s, children had their own rooms. By the 1980s, parents who let their infants sleep beside them were being warned, in medical literature, that they were doing harm. The 300,000-year-old default had been reclassified as a danger. The numbers are not subtle. In 1974, about 19% of American households were single-person households. In 2024, the U.S. Census Bureau put that number at 29%. Roughly 38 million people in one country, going to sleep every night in an empty home. The World Health Organization now classifies social isolation as a global health crisis. About 1 in 3 American adults reports feeling lonely. The U.S. Surgeon General has compared the mortality risk of chronic loneliness to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. You can argue about which way the causation runs, but the species that evolved to fall asleep in the warmth of other bodies has, in about 5 generations, rebuilt its entire sleeping environment around being alone in the dark. And it isn't sleeping well. We treat insomnia as a personal failure. We medicate it. We buy weighted blankets, which are engineered substitutes for another person's arm. We pay for white noise machines that mimic the sound of someone else breathing. We fall asleep with phones in our hands. The silence is the part we can't take. The market for these products is worth tens of billions of dollars, and almost none of it would exist if we still slept the way humans slept for 99.95% of our history. The privacy we gained is real. No lice, no strangers in the bed, no peddler at the foot of the mattress. You inherited the nervous system of a primate who fell asleep every night for 300,000 years, listening to the breathing of people who would die for them. That primate is still inside you. It's the reason your sleep deepens when someone you love is in the bed. It's the reason a child cries when put alone in a dark room. Hotels feel strange. Hospitals feel strange. The first night in a new home feels strange. So tonight, when you turn off the light, when the room goes quiet, when you lie there in the dark and sleep takes longer than it should, and you reach for your phone without knowing why, remember this: you're not broken. You're the first generation of humans ever asked to do this, and the part of you that resists it isn't weakness, it's memory. We traded all of it for a door that closes, and most of us never even noticed it shut.